All right, so welcome back. We are here with the ambassador of the EU as we promised. She's here to discuss with us different partnerships and projects within Belize and the EU. So, good morning, Ambassador, and welcome. How are you this morning?
Good morning and thanks for having me. I'm very happy. I arrived yesterday in this beautiful country. I'm accredited here since the end of last year. It's my second visit and I'm very much looking forward to get to know the country, the people. So yeah, I'm very happy to be here for some 10 days now. Is the plan.
Ambassador, of course, this is your first interview with us, so this is an introductory interview as well as an update on what you'll be doing on your time here. But let me just step back. You are actually, you're resident in Jamaica, but you are the EU representative for Belize. Let's talk a bit about what it was like for you coming into this particular region and some of the things that excited you about being able to serve here.
How am I going to summarize that in 1 minute?
Did you say, oh, beaches?
No, I'm very happy because actually I've been serving in many countries in this part of the world, but more in Latin America. And now I'm more like in the Caribbean, which is actually a discovery. It's new. I love the climate. I love many things. I love the Caribbean Sea. I love, from a culinary point of view, it's very, very nice. It's culturally very enriching. It's very different from Latin America, so I'm learning a lot about different cultures. And now I have to say Belize for me is this kind of very fascinating country because it's a bridge between what I used to know a lot better with the Caribbean. And I always wonder if this country is more Caribbean or it's more Central America. And I'm asking that question very often to people I meet here. And it's sort of, I think it's really, it's a kind of a bridge, no? I think it's a little bit of both, which makes it extra interesting, of course.
Yeah, thank you for that perspective. And I think it definitely shifts depending on what part of the country you're in as well. And when we look at some of the areas that the European Union has provided funding, and there are many, I want to dive into what has been kind of a flagship or a very important project, development project. And let's look at the banana industry and the banana belt and the work that you've done there. So as you come for your second visit, is your plan to kind of do an assessment of ongoing projects and completed projects? What's on the schedule?
Well, we continuously assess what we've done in the past in order to learn for the future. So that is really something we never neglect, not here, not anywhere. So I will indeed travel around as much as I can and try to speak with the people, see what we've done, whether it worked out or not. We've been extremely active in this banana belt, but also in the sugar belt. So we've been both in the north and in the south. And it will be very interesting to actually go out there and see what we've done, what worked. I think we've worked in particular with the small farmers in order to make sure that their productivity went up, that their competitiveness went up. Because all of that, it was a huge investment from our side to compensate for the fact that both bananas and sugar were actually losing out on the preferential access that they used to have to the EU market. So we wanted to help out and to make sure that the banana producers and also the sugar producers could actually increase their competitivity so they could actually compete in the international market. So that has been extremely important for the last 10, 12 years. But now we're actually moving on. And so one of the other reasons why I'm here is not look at the past, it's more looking at the future. A very interesting meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister, with the Foreign Minister, and the idea is that we will program new funding from the European Union, and that we have to look, of course, at what are the priority sectors of the government. So we're working on the past, the ongoing. I didn't mention the ongoing. We're working very strongly now, both in energy and in health. And then we're looking at what we're going to do in the future. So that is a very important part of my mission here. But it's not only that. I really would like to say that when we are here, we're often seen as a donor. I think we're probably one of the most important donors. I mean, I do not want to say that, but I mean, if we look at the figures, some 200 million euro over the last 30 years. I can't even count that in Belizean dollars, but it's a lot. But I don't think that we should continue in this donor-recipient relationship. And I've discussed that as well with the Prime Minister when I was here the first time in February, that we really want to go to a more, let's say, partner relationship. We need each other. I mean, of course, the EU is big, 27 member states, it's huge. Belize is small, but we need each other. I mean, there's so many challenges in the world and they're all global. So we are actually reaching out to upgrade our relationship, not just, giving some funds, helping the country. We'll continue to do so. But we also want to, become partners and try to see how we can help each other face the many, many challenges that we have in this 21st century.
That's an interesting perspective, because you're right. I think the European Union has been looked at as such a critical donor in the country. And I think one of the easy ways is if people learn to identify the EU symbol, they'll see how it's distributed all over the country. But the idea of a partnership, some will look at it and say, well, how would Belize be able to help out the European Union? What are ideas that you think are viable to be able to move away from the donor-recipient model to more of working together and helping each other?
Well, you'd be surprised. I can mention many, but look at climate change. And look at the multilateral negotiations ongoing, the COP26, which is coming in Glasgow. We do all know that pollution or climate change is not stopping at borders. So we can be, we have our Green Deal. We are, very, very climate, conscious. More and more in the European Union, we are actually trying everything what we do right now. We're trying to make it sustainable. We try to change our ways of living, learning from the past. But it doesn't make any sense if we're just doing it on our own. We need to have partners, because not only because these other partners have to try to help as well to stop climate change, but also at the multilateral level, we have plenty of countries in the world that may not share our opinion. So it's very important. Every country has a vote, and it's not whether you're a small country or a big country. You always have to work together. That is one example, but there's so many. The pandemic now. We do know that the world is not going to be safe if not everyone is safe. And we do know that, more needs to be done in terms of vaccine delivery, vaccine production. I'm very proud that the EU has been contributing a lot to vaccine delivery through the COVAX multilateral system. But I do also know that's not been enough. But I think if in a country, how small it can be, people do not care, people do not take vaccines, people whatever. It may lead to new variants, and we're all going to be unsafe. So these are just two examples, but it's not important whether the country is big or whether it's small. It's important that we face those challenges together. And let me, if you allow me, just say one more thing. Oh, okay. I think that in this 21st century, we face the challenge of values. I see, unfortunately, that the values that we share, the European Union, with a country like Belize, in terms of democracy, upholding the rule of law, human rights, we are very close. But how many countries in the world are, sidestepping these so important values more and more? And there we need partners. And we really need partners all over the world. So yes, I really think there's a lot where we can actually work together to face these challenges.
Are there any works or discussions for partnership in the education sector? Is anything ongoing there?
We're actually, that is funny that you ask, because we're now working with the new programming exercise 2021-2027. We work with 7-year cycles. and we're trying to make sure that we have priorities. And one of the priorities, as I mentioned already, is climate change. We want to make sure that if we are helping third countries with their development or sustainable development goals, I mean, that at least 30% of everything what we do takes into account this climate change awareness. And actually, education is another one. Our commissioner in charge of, it used to be development cooperation, now we call it international partnerships, has also made it very clear that whatever we do, we need to make sure that a certain percentage of our funds will go to education. For the moment, I think the most important project we have where education is involved is our Spotlight initiative, which is a very important initiative that actually the European Union is financing all over the world, but also in Belize, and which is implemented by the United Nations. And it has to do with, family violence, gender equality, and their education is key, is very important. So there, yes, we are working strongly with the United Nations.
And I wanted to dive into that a bit when you talked about common values, especially when it comes to human rights and looking at the preservation of family. I think the Spotlight Initiative was launched a bit over a year ago.
Yes,
and it is definitely an attempt to assist in bringing to light the severity of violence within households. And we're not just talking about violence against women, violence against children, and not just physical violence, abuse of all forms. Now, looking at the particular model that's being used, what is the hope in this particular partnership?
What is the hope?
Yeah, what is the hope? Is it just education and awareness and empowerment? Is it being able to reduce incidences of violence?
Everything what you're mentioning is part of the objectives.
Okay.
And actually, I'm going to have a meeting tomorrow as well with the UN that is actually in charge of implementing to see what has been done, what is working, what are the results, etc. It's 1 year and a half that we're working on that. I'm extremely pleased to have noted that with the new government coming in, I can't really judge what happened before because I was not accredited yet, but that there is this interest to work together. I mean, I was invited in the month of July in a virtual meeting where actually Spotlight and the government and the plans of the government were, trying to find synergies. And I thought that was extremely interesting. I haven't seen that in other countries, that there was this close link. So I'm very much looking forward because we do have to work together. I mean, you cannot just come into a country and say, we're going to address this challenge, but you do not get the government and those who are actually working in the field on board. So that is really important. So I'm very hopeful. I mean, what I've seen was very promising. And I'm also going to discover in the course of the week that I'm here to what extent we really have already been able to have results in those areas you mentioned.
And in terms of working with this current government, what is it that is offered in partnership in terms of good governance? I understand that Belize and Belizeans on a whole, the climate is, we tend to be very critical or skeptical about whether or not our leaders are fit for leadership and whether or not they are actually leading with good governance. How does the EU partner with our government in ensuring some sort of transparency and these factors in their leadership?
It's a very good question. So far, I haven't seen many projects, which very often we finance in other countries with civil society organizations who try to, request this kind of accountability from the side of the government. I haven't seen any of those projects ongoing. I hope in the future we can. Normally, when we have this kind of projects, we do a call for proposals. We invite civil society to make a proposal, and now we choose the best ones, and now we finance that. So that is something I really think may be very important. On the other hand, the fact that the citizens of Belize are asking for that you're asking the question, again proves to me this sort of this democratic values that this country has and that we should try to help to foster. But I cannot, point to one particular project. I can point to strengthening of the capacity of the government in certain sectors. Yes, because I do think that sometimes when you say governance, I mean, it is about the entire public administration, that we can exchange experiences, that we can help out, and that we can strengthen the public administration in countries just by, not because we're better, but just exchanging, or in terms of IT upgrades, or this kind of thing. So we're doing that for the moment in health and energy. That's maybe not what you meant, because you were talking more about democratic accountability, but I think it's very important that the public administration is able to provide the services to the people that they deserve. So there we're reaching out.
Also, as one of the largest donors, I would imagine that there are mechanisms set in place for accountability and transparency when finances and funds are being given, to ensure that those funds are not exploited or mismanaged.
Indeed, and we are very strong on this. I mean, sometimes we are not seen with such a nice eyes, because we have very, very many procedures, controls, audits, not in just in terms of accounting, but also results-oriented monitoring. We send out teams who actually go in the field and they check all that money of the European taxpayer. Has it been well used? Not only in terms that money may have disappeared, which of course we will also look at, but also like, did we reach the results that we wanted? So yes, we are very, very intensely working on that. Every single euro that we spend needs to be controlled. And this is not just because we believe that it should be, but we have also the European Parliament behind us, the ones who give us the budget, that will say, hey, is it well spent? So that is indeed a very important part of our tasks.
Yeah, you are in the consultation period of the new partnership agreement.
I'm in the consultation.
You said you're looking at establishing the new 7-year.
Yes, of course.
So,
yes, indeed, yes.
And I think that's a key part for us to discuss. Very often when people see international donors coming in, the skepticism is that it is a foreign agenda that is being implemented in a country. Tell us about who you consult with to ensure that the needs that you do decide, or the projects that you do decide to fund, are in fact necessary at the time.
Very important question, because indeed that is a criticism which I have heard, and which I've witnessed as well. I mean, sometimes, and I think in the past, we have made that mistake in some countries. Here I'm so happy, because actually when I arrived, I was lucky. It was just a new government coming in, and I had a meeting with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I was explaining, we would love to continue to work with you, but we cannot really do so on our own. So please make sure that we have an interlocutor with whom we can actually work together to make sure that whatever we are planning to do in the future is going to respond to the needs of the country. And the Prime Minister took that advice into account. So he appointed an interlocutor who has not only been working with us, but who has been working intensively with all the ministries. Because the idea is that whatever we do in the future would actually fit into the Plan Belize, which has been developed by a very close coordination. I think it came from the Prime Minister's office, but it was like, I was explained yesterday, done with all the ministries. And I'm very proud that we could actually make it to that, because it was just the right moment to arrive. I mean, the Plan Belize was being consulted with the different ministries, with the new government. So I'm very happy that we could sort of tap into that coordination, which was ongoing anyhow, and that we could make sure that we listen to what is, what is living here and what are the challenges here. So I'm very happy about that. We have some ideas. The point is now, how are we going to go forward? So one of the other ideas is that also in the exchanges I've had with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, is that that the country could put in place some kind of an entity to actually oversee what comes in from abroad. because it's not only the EU. I mean, there are other donors as well, and it's extremely important that we do not duplicate and that we work together. Well, let's say that it's not that I would be working together directly with another donor, but that the government knows very well that if they're asking A to us, they should ask B to someone else, and that we are just being complementary. So this is something we're even ready to finance, to put some money there in order to make sure that the administrative capacity that will be needed to do that, it's not yet decided, but we're working on that, okay?
No, it is an interesting concept. It does happen very often.
It will help such a lot. I mean, it's like, it's not always the amount of money that you put into something, it is the way you use it. And it, you know, you need to start with the beginning. You need to have a good team that knows what to do, where to do, and how to do it. And I think, I mean, the Belizean authorities know that a lot better than we do. So I would love to see this sort of unit being set up as our main counterpart, because then we can also be confident that the money will be well used.
So you arrived yesterday. Unfortunately, in a few days you'll be on heavy restrictions, but I must say you're coming from Jamaica, where it's even more strict.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about the situation there at the moment.
It's not good. It's not good. And it's very sad because I think both Jamaica and Belize have done relatively well in, let's say, the first year of the pandemic or the first 15, 16 months. And then, you know, there is now this threat, is it really, because it started to spike, I think I mean, it started to go up, maybe spike. For Jamaica, it was spiking. Here, it just went up relatively mildly, but still. The question is, can it be contained? And in Jamaica, the last 6-7 weeks, they were locked down from Saturday night until Wednesday morning. Not even going to the supermarket. No way, complete lockdown. But I think they have come to the conclusion that it did not really, you know, lead to the results they were seeking. Because probably in the days that people were not locked down, they saw more of each other. So it wasn't, probably the most balanced decision. I mean, who am I? You know, everyone is trying. It's a trial and error kind of thing in every single country. I mean, in Europe as well. We've seen most incredible things. So actually yesterday, I think in Belize as well, the Prime Minister has announced new rules in Jamaica as well. And they will now go back to strict lockdowns. I think it's 7 o'clock at night. 7 or 8 o'clock at night, I can't remember. Most of the year it was 8 o'clock at night. I mean, I've arrived in Jamaica a year ago and I've hardly been out of my house after 8 o'clock at night. I think there's been like 6 weeks where we could be out until 11, but the rest of the year was very, very much locked down. So here in Belize, I see that the Prime Minister as well is imposing some new restrictions, which any government has to do, whether you like it or not. I mean, you have to fight against it. But the real solution, I mean, if I may, is the vaccine. Whether people like it or dislike it, it's all about surviving. And we have seen in Europe very clearly that all the ones, because we have now reached very, very high percentages of vaccination, around 70-80%, I think, on average. And the fact is that
where some countries in Europe are considering to just reopen now because they've reached such high vaccination rates.
I mean, in the country I come from, which I shouldn't say because I'm representing 27, but I was there this summer and life got back to normal. It got back to normal. I mean, the figures are still not perfect. But people live in a completely normal way, and the only reason is because they're vaccinated. And you could actually see in the hospitals that the ones who, in the end, still end up in the hospital were the ones not vaccinated. So we do have proof that it works. And I think that has been the main argument in many countries. I'm not saying in all the countries in Europe. It's sort of like, you want to go back to your normal life? Get vaccinated. And people are back to normal life. We just also hope that we're not going to have another spike. It can happen. I mean, nobody knows this virus. I mean, it is just unpredictable. And I very much hope that here with the new measures and also the vaccines, that people will, I mean, you're not doing that bad. I mean, in percentages, I mean, it can be better. But I think, I mean, it gives some hope that Belize will also get over the worst soon. I very much hope so.
Well, of course, we know this is the start of your trip, and so this time around, you said you're going to try to see a bit more of it. So please enjoy your time in Belize, and then the next time you join us, then we'll start to quiz you on what you've seen and learned about Belize, right? You get a break this time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Do take care and stay safe on the rest of your visit.
All
You
right.
too.
All right.
Thanks.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and E-Governance, who are offering a learning opportunity for 5,000 Belizeans to understand the world of online trading. That's coming up in a few, so stay tuned.